The bus door creaked open, and a small foot stepped down onto the gravel road. Dust swirled up, catching the morning light. She held a small bag tightly, like it was all she owned in the world. Her name was Tara. She was 17. Her clothes were plain. Her eyes didn't shine like the other students who got off the bus with her. They looked tired, as if they'd seen too much already. Around her, laughter rang out. Boys in smart uniforms high-fived each other. Girls with shiny shoes whispered and giggled as they walked. No one looked at Tara, and when someone did, it was only to frown or give a curious, judgmental glance. She didn't belong here, and everyone saw it. Everyone except her. The school building was large, modern, proud. It stood like a castle, glass, panels gleaming, with flags of every color swaying in the breeze. Tara stood in front of it like someone from a different world. Her shoes had been stitched twice by her uncle. Her backpack was once her father's. She looked up. The words carved on the stone arch read, "Excellence is earned here." A strange smile played on her lips. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The receptionist didn't even look up. "Tara Malik," she said softly. The woman finally glanced up and paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Scholarship student." Tara nodded. The woman typed something slowly. "You'll be in 11B, locker 287. Here's your ID. Uniforms from the store on the left. Next." Tara stepped aside as the line moved forward. No welcome, no smile, just silence. The corridors were loud. Everyone moved fast. Tara tried to look confident, but inside her heart beat loudly. She found her class. The teacher wasn't there yet. She stepped inside. Dozens of eyes turned. Some whispered. One boy laughed. A girl at the back rolled her eyes. Tara quietly walked to the empty seat in the corner. She opened her notebook. Her hand shook a little. "Hey," someone said beside her. A tall boy, with gelled hair and a mocking smile. "You lost? The servants' quarters are out back." Laughter erupted. Tara didn't look up. Her ears turned red. She kept staring at her page, forcing her pen to move. The boy leaned in again. "Or did they mistake you for a student?" More laughter. This time she did look up. Her eyes met. His.com, unflinching. "Are you done?" she asked quietly. His smile faded just a little. "What did you say?" he asked, louder now. "I asked if you're done. I need to take notes." The class quieted. The boy scoffed and turned away. Someone whispered, "She's weird." Tara kept writing. The first few days passed like this. Whispers, laughs, silence. She ate lunch alone, under the tree behind the auditorium, but she never missed a class. She always sat in front, always answered questions, always handed her assignments early. Some teachers noticed, but most didn't care. Until the first test came. Tara topped the class. The list was pinned outside. The classroom students crowded around. "What? Who the hell is T. Malik?" someone said. "Is that her?" A girl whispered, pointing. Tara stood a few steps away, quiet. "There's no way," the tall boy said again. His name was Arman. She cheated. Another voice joined. "She probably begged a teacher," someone else added. Tara heard it all, but she just walked past them, into class, and opened her book. Later that day, the principal called her in. "Tara," he said, with a curious smile, "you did very well." She nodded politely. "But some students are questioning how you scored so high. I trust there was no help involved." She looked up. "Sir, I studied. That's all." He leaned back, nodding slowly. "Good, then keep it up. You're here on a scholarship. Make it count." She left the office, her heart heavy. They still didn't believe her. No one did. The days grew harder. Armin made it his mission to humiliate her. He'd trip her in the hallway, tear pages from her notebook, block her locker. The teachers didn't see, or didn't care. One day after lunch, she returned to find her bag emptied on the floor. Her book soaked in water, her pen broken, her lunchbox gone. A note stuck to the wall read, "Go back to where you came from." Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She picked up each item, one by one, in silence. That evening, she didn't go home. She went to the workshop behind the school, the one where the janitors repaired broken chairs and tables. Her uncle worked there. He looked up, surprised. "Tara, what happened?" She didn't say anything, just hugged him tightly, wiped her tears. "You know what we do with broken things here?" he asked, holding up a shattered chair. She shook her head. "We don't throw them away," he said. "We fix them, stronger than before." Tara looked at the broken chair, then at her hands. That night, she didn't sleep. She wrote, she planned, she started something that would later change everything. But no one knew yet. The storm hadn't come. Next week an announcement came. The school's annual inter-house championship, sports debate, robotics, drama. Everyone had to participate. The list went up. Tara had been placed in House Red, weakest house, no trophies in 5 years. Students groaned. With her, one of them pointed to Tara. "We're doomed." Arman, of course, was House Blue the strongest. He laughed. "Let's not worry about the janitor's niece. Let her mop the floors after we win." But Tara didn't back away. She joined the robotics team. No one wanted her. She messed it up, one senior said. Let her sit and watch. But she didn't just watch. She designed a mechanism they hadn't thought of, quietly in her notebook, then built it from scrap in the janitor's workshop. When they saw what she'd done, they were silent. No one said thank you, but they didn't kick her out either. Days passed. Tara trained alone, practiced speeches at night, watched old matches, learned strategies. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she was determined. Her uncle would bring her tea and sit nearby as she studied. "You don't need to prove anything," he'd say. She'd smile and reply, "I already belong. They just don't see it yet." The night before the championship, it rained heavily. Power went out. Tara stayed up by candlelight, fixing the final alignment of the robot's claw. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she didn't stop. Her team didn't even ask her to join. The next day's plan, they assumed she'd be invisible, but the next morning changed everything. That day, the hall was packed. Loud, colorful. Each house wore matching t-shirts. Cheers echoed. The first event was robotics. House Blue brought a shiny, professionally built robot. Everyone clapped. Tara walked in last, holding a small metallic bot patched up with wires and tape. Laughter broke out. Even the judges looked skeptical. "Let's begin," the announcer said. But no one expected what happened next. Tara's robot moved fast. Clean, sharp turns, precise grabs. It picked up all 5 blocks in record time. The crowd went silent. Then someone clapped. Then more. The judges looked stunned. House Red had won the first event. The principal leaned forward, whispering something to the coordinator. Tara didn't hear, but she saw Armand's face red with disbelief. The girl who didn't belong just outplayed them all. But that was just the beginning. Because what happened next would shake the school to its roots. Rain poured hard the next morning, making the academy grounds muddy and slippery. But inside the walls, the pressure was rising faster than the storm outside. Students were buzzing about yesterday's incident, Zara stepping into the arena. And freezing, she couldn't even hold the blade properly. Someone whispered in the hallway. "Did you see how nervous she was? It was like she didn't belong here at all," said another. Zara heard them. She always did. But this time, she didn't run. She kept her eyes ahead, her shoulders straight. Something inside her had changed, because she was suddenly stronger, but because she was tired. Tired of pretending not to care. In her dorm room, Zara sat on the edge of her bed. She looked down at her blistered palms, the result of hours of practice late at night when no one was watching. Her roommate Lila sat nearby, watching her silently. "You going again today?" Lila asked. Zara nodded. "Why?" Zara looked up, her voice quiet but firm. "Because I have to." Later, during training, Zara stood quietly in the last row. Master Kale entered the room, a tall, lean man with silver in his beard and eyes like stone. He scanned the trainees and paused for a moment when his gaze reached her. "Today we test reaction," he said sharply. "Speed, not strength. Everyone will rotate pairs." One by one, students took the floor, attacking and blocking with wooden blades. When Zara's name was called, a few people snickered. Her opponent, Ren, the academy's pride, the strongest. Ren grinned lazily and stepped onto the mat. "Try not to cry this time," he whispered, just loud enough for others to hear. Zara gripped her blade tighter. She stepped forward, not answering. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from focus. "Begin." Ren moved fast to fast. Within seconds, his blade tapped her shoulder. "Point," the trainer shouted. Zara reset. Her chest tightened, but she held her ground. Again, Ren lunged. This time Zara shifted sideways. Not enough to win, but enough to avoid the strike. Again. They moved like that, round after round. Ren scored easily, but each time, Zara lasted longer. Dodged better. Her footwork, while unpolished, was getting quicker. By the 7th round, even the whispers began to quiet down. "She's not terrible," someone muttered. "She's improving." Ren's smirk faded just slightly. He began to swing harder. Zara, though breathless, kept dodging. On the 9th round, she ducked low and struck his arm, not enough for a point, but enough for a reaction. Ren flinched. Silence. Zara stepped back, her chest rising and falling fast. She looked up and for the first time, didn't see laughter in Ren's eyes. She saw surprise. Later that evening, as the sun set, Zara walked behind the stables, where few people went. She needed space to breathe, but she wasn't alone. A voice called out. It was Master Kale. Zara turned quickly and straightened. "Sir?" He raised a hand to stop her. "You came late to this academy," he said. "And not by choice, I hear." Zara stayed silent. Kale stepped closer. "You're not like them. You haven't trained since childhood. Your muscles aren't ready. Your instincts aren't polished." "I know," Zara whispered, but Kale's eyes softened. "You have something they don't." Zara frowned. "Like what?" "Desperation," he said, and a quiet kind of rage. "That's hard to train but powerful when controlled." Zara looked down. "No one believes I belong here." Kale nodded. "Then prove them wrong." The next few days passed in grueling rhythm. Zara trained harder, her body aching each night. Her knuckles bled, her legs shook. She failed again and again, but she didn't stop. One afternoon, as the trainees were practicing balance on ropes suspended above the arena pit, Zara climbed up behind the others. The task was clear: cross the rope without falling. She watched 2 girls fall and land softly on the padding below. Then Leela crossed, careful, shaky but steady. When it was her turn, Zara swallowed hard. Her hands were slick with sweat. Her foot slipped once, then twice. Laughter echoed below. She's too clumsy. She's going to fall in 5 seconds. Zara closed her eyes, breathed deeply, then stepped forward. 1 foot, 2. The rope wobbled wildly. She bent her knees, extended her arms for balance. Her vision blurred from focus. Halfway across, the wind picked up. Her foot slipped again, but this time she didn't fall. She dropped to her knees, crawled the rest of the way. When she reached the end, she stood legs shaking and bowed. Silence again. Not laughter, just silence. That night, Ren found her by the mess hall. She was alone, pouring water over her bruised hands. He tossed her a cloth. You still look like a disaster. Zara took the cloth, confused. Thanks. Ren leaned against the wall. But, you didn't fall. I didn't expect that. Zara looked at him. Maybe I'm not here to meet your expectations. Ren laughed, but not cruelly. You've got some fire. Zara didn't answer. She didn't need to, but as Ren walked away, he turned back once more. Let's see if that fire burns in the real test, next week. Zara froze. What test? Ren just smiled. The instructors will announce it soon. It's not pretty. Zara stood alone in the dim light of the lanterns. Her hands hurt. Her back ached. But something in her chest was stirring a mixture of fear and determination. She didn't know what test was coming, but something told her it would be the moment that either broke her or made her unforgettable. The academy bell rang 3 times before dawn. That had never happened before. Students sat up in their beds, confused. Zara opened her eyes slowly. Her body ached from yesterday's training, but something in the air felt different. Heavier. Leela rubbed her eyes. What's going on? Zara didn't answer. She was already pulling on her boots. Her hands shook. Not from fear but because she already knew. This was the test Ren had warned her about. Minutes later, everyone was assembled in the central yard. It was still dark. Cold wind blew through the tall stone walls. The instructors stood lined up under torches. At the center was Master Kale. He stepped forward and looked at them all. Today, he said loudly, you will be divided into groups. Each group will be dropped into the Ember Woods. A murmur spread. Zara's heart skipped. The Ember Woods were outside the academy walls, wild, thick, unpredictable. Kale continued. Each group will be given a flag. The goal is simple. Before sundown with your flag still in hand, you lose your flag. You fail. You return after sunset. You fail. You give up. He paused. You're gone. No one laughed. This isn't about swordplay, Kale said. It's about leadership, pain, endurance, and fear. He began calling names, 5 per group. When Zara's name was spoken, her stomach twisted. Zara, Leela, Tovin, Merrick, and Ren. Ren raised an eyebrow. Oh, this should be fun. They were handed a pack-1 flag, a flask of water, and a compass. Nothing more. By sunrise, they were outside the walls, walking toward the thick forest. The trees stood tall like watchmen, their branches sharp, the shadows deep. The instructors didn't follow them, and no one would guide them. Once they entered, they were alone. Leela whispered, is this even legal? Zara didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the trees ahead. Inside the woods, it was darker than expected. The air smelled like damp earth and old bark. Every sound, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, felt louder. Ren took the lead, holding the compass. We head north. That's where the signal horn will blow tonight. If we're close enough by sunset, we pass. Marek grumbled. We should just move fast. No brakes. But Tovin shook his head. Speed means nothing if we lose the flag, and we don't even know what traps they've set. Zara stayed quiet. Walking behind, she felt the eyes on her, the silent judgment. Marek had made it clear he didn't think she belonged here. Earlier that week, she'd heard him say it. Dead weight doesn't win wars. They walked for hours. Mud clung to their boots. Thorns scratched their arms. At noon, the sky was barely visible through the dense canopy. They stopped near a stream to refill water. Suddenly, Ren froze. Everyone stopped. A faint sound. Footsteps. Not theirs. Then an arrow flew past Marek's head and struck the tree down. Ren shouted. They dropped. 3 masked figures rushed from the trees. Academy trainers clearly planted to test them. Tovin raised a stick to fight. Ren swung his pack over his back, securing the flag. Zara saw one attacker go for Lila, without thinking. She threw herself at the figure's legs, knocking them sideways. Lila scrambled up. Thanks. Zara didn't reply. She was already pulling herself up from the mud. Ren and Marek fought the last 2 figures off. One trainer knocked Marek down and grabbed the flag, but Ren kicked him hard in the chest. Snatching it back, the attackers retreated, disappearing into the trees. Everyone was breathing hard. Ren looked around. Anyone hurt? Marek cursed under his breath but nodded. Just bruises. Zara's arms were scraped, her palms cut, but she shook her head. I'm fine. They kept walking, this time tighter, more alert. Trust was thin, but they knew now this wasn't just about the woods. This was war. By late afternoon, the path forked. The left trail was wider, smoother, the right narrow, full of rocks. Ren stopped. Wider path might be a trap, Tovin agreed. Too easy. They want us to take it. Marek didn't care. It's faster. I say we go left. But Leela looked at Zara. What do you think? Everyone turned. Zara blinked. She wasn't used to being asked. I think, she said slowly, the right path slows us down, but that means fewer attackers. More cover. If we stay alert, we can make it. Ren gave a slight nod. All right. We follow her, Merrick muttered. Brilliant. They turned right. The path was rough. Zara's legs ached. Each step was a struggle, but every corner they passed without being ambushed gave them confidence. Maybe they'd make it, but just before sunset, they reached a cliff. The map was wrong. The path ended suddenly, dropping into a shallow gorge. Below, a river rushed through the rocks. No way across, Merrick said bitterly. We'll never make it before sunset if we turn back. Leela pointed to a broken tree hanging over the edge. We could climb down, then, across the rocks. Tovin frowned. Too risky. We slip. We break bones. Zara stepped forward. Her voice was calm. We're out of time. Ren tossed her the flag. You're first then. Zara caught it. She looked down the drop. Her hands were shaking again. Not from fear but from everything she'd carried for weeks. Doubt, pressure, failure, voices calling her weak. She tucked the flag into her belt, then climbed. The first step broke beneath her butt. She clung to a root. Her breath caught. She kept going. The tree creaked. The bark scraped her knees. Below, the river roared. Step by step, her boots found rock. She jumped the last few feet, landing in a splash. She looked up. Your turn. One by one, they climbed. Down. Leela slipped once Zara caught her wrist. Merrick almost fell, but made it. Ren was last as the sun touched the horizon. They climbed the other side of the gorge, and then they heard it, the horn, in the distance. North, we're close. Lila gasped. They ran, sprinting through roots and branches, ignoring pain. Just chasing the sound, and finally, just as the last sunlight dipped below the trees, they saw Ita torch. A flagpole. The end. They staggered into the clearing. Trainers stood waiting. Ren held up the flag. Kale nodded once. Past. Zara dropped to her knees. The others cheered, laughed, collapsed in exhaustion. But Kale stepped toward Zara. His voice was low. You took the lead? Zara looked up. Only because they let me. No, Kale said firmly. They didn't let you. You earned it. Zara blinked fast. In the days that followed, word spread. About her call at the fork, her climb, her leadership. People began to look at her differently. Not like a weak girl who froze, but like someone becoming a warrior. And yet, as she stood alone that night, looking at the stars, she knew the hardest part wasn't over. It was just beginning, because soon she would face someone she wasn't ready for, someone from her past, someone who never wanted her to rise. She stood outside the training room, her shoes wet from the morning dew, her hands cold, her heart even colder. No one said anything to her as she walked in, just side glances and quiet whispers that felt louder than any scream. It had been a week since she arrived, and not once had anyone sat with her during meals. Not once had someone offered her a towel or shared a joke. She was invisible to them, and yet somehow, her presence was treated like a stain no one wanted. To acknowledge today was strength trials. The senior coach, a broad-shouldered man with a voice like cracking thunder, barked out instructions as everyone lined up near the weights. You want to stay here? You want to belong? Then prove it. Strength isn't in your arms, it's in your decision not to quit. She stood quietly behind the others, waiting for her turn. Remembering every word her father once told her, no one will open the door for you, you must learn to open it yourself. Her father, who worked in a garage and made her lift tires when she was just 10, who taught her to balance a wrench and write poetry in the same day, he believed in her. But now, surrounded by mockery, that belief felt so far away. Her turn came. She walked toward the rusted weight bar as snickers filled the back of the line. A boy muttered, "She cried before she lifts," and his friend laughed. She didn't look at them. Her eyes were on the bar, her hands gripped it, rough and cold. She inhaled then. With a steady breath, she lifted not just once, not just twice. Each time the bar came down, she raised it again, gritting her teeth. Her arms shook, her back screamed, but she didn't let go. The snickering stopped. For the first time, no one spoke. Even the senior coach had his arms crossed and his brow raised, watching silently. After the set, she dropped the bar and stood straight, her body trembling, her heart screaming, but her eyes steady. The silence hung in the air like fog. Next, the coach said, but his voice had softened. She stepped away. As she sat near the wall, the others avoided her again. But now something was different. A few of them weren't laughing anymore. They were watching her, some with disbelief, some with confusion, some with something close to respect but not. Quite later that evening, as she walked toward the dorms, a stone hit her back. She turned around, was one of the boys from the trial. "You think lifting a bar makes you one of us?" he shouted. She said nothing. He walked closer. "People like you are charity cases. You're not strong. You're just loud." She looked at him quietly, then said, "I wasn't loud. You were just quiet for once." That silenced him, but the damage was done. The next morning, her shoes were gone, replaced by torn ones. Her locker was filled with mud. Even her uniform had cuts in it, as if someone had slashed it with scissors. She cleaned it all quietly. No complaints, no tears. When she walked into training, barefoot and bruised, the coach called her out. "Where are your shoes?" he asked. She simply said, "I'm here to train, sir." "That's enough." The coach stared at her for a long moment before turning to the group. "We train as one. If one is hurt, I'll feel it. If one suffers, I'll know it. If I find out who's behind this, they're out." His voice cracked across the room like a whip, but she knew it wouldn't stop. Not yet. Later that week, the next trial began. Endurance. 5 kilometers with weighted packs on the hill path that twisted like a serpent up the side of the mountain. She ran silently, her feet still sore, her pack heavier than everyone else's. She suspected someone must have added extra rocks while she wasn't looking. She didn't complain. One by one, others slowed down. Some stopped altogether. Her breath came ragged. Her knees ached, but she kept going. Halfway up, she slipped on gravel and fell hard. Blood oozed from her palm. She stood, shook off the dust, kept going. At the final stretch, the boy who'd mocked her earlier was on his knees, gasping. She paused beside him. "Keep going," he said through clenched teeth. "Or are you going to gloat now?" She reached into her pocket, pulled out her water bottle, and handed it to him. He looked at it, confused. "Why? You don't have to fall," she said, and then walked on. She finished third, but no one cared about the place. That evening, the same boy walked into the dining hall and placed her shoes, clean and repaired, in front of her tray. He didn't say a word, just walked away. Others saw it. Whispers changed tone later. When the lights went out, she sat on her bunk, watching the ceiling. The cracks looked like branches, like veins, like a map. Somewhere in this twisted mess, she was finding her path. She had come to this place with nothing but grit and memory. But grit could crack stone, and memory could carry you through storms. Just as her eyes were about to close, a quiet knock came at her door. She opened it. It was the strongest girl in the training squad, the one everyone admired. Tall, fierce, undefeated in every match. "I want to spar with you," she said. "Now?" she asked. "No, tomorrow, in front of everyone." "Why?" The girl smiled, but there was no kindness in it. "To see if you're really as strong as they're starting to say." She nodded. "Okay." The door closed. And just like that, the silence of the night held a promise. A battle was coming. One she couldn't afford to lose. Not now. Not after everything. But the strongest hadn't challenged her to fight. She'd challenged her to belong, and that was even harder. Tomorrow the world would watch her fall or rise, and she had no idea which one it would be. She couldn't sleep. Every minute felt like an hour. The room was dark, but her thoughts were loud. Tomorrow's match with the strongest girl wasn't just about strength, it was about everything. Her right palm still burned from the fall on the hill, and her back ached from the pack. But her mind was the loudest. Was she good enough? Could she even stand a chance against someone who had never been beaten? Somewhere in the silence, her father's voice came back again. "You are not fighting people. You are fighting the weight of what they think of you." Morning came faster than expected. The sky was still soft pink when she walked to the training yard. No breakfast, no warm-up. She wanted to feel everything, every shiver, every ache. The strongest girl, Zara, was already waiting. Gloves on, her jaw tight, her eyes like stone. A crowd began to gather, quiet, curious, unsure. The coach didn't stop them. He stood on the side, arms crossed. "Make it clean," he said. No bell, no timer. Just two fighters in the center of a dirt ring. Zara stepped forward first, smooth and sure. Her punches were fast, sharp, practiced. She moved like someone who had done this her whole life. And she had her family was known in every camp, military blood, strength in every generation. She wasn't just strong, she was legacy. The first punch came like lightning. The girl ducked just in time. The wind from Zara's fist brushed her cheek. She backed off, careful, focused. Zara smirked. "You're quick," she said. "But you can't dodge forever." Another punch, another dodge. Then a kick. This one landed. Pain shot up her ribs like a scream. She stumbled but didn't fall. The crowd leaned in. Another jab, another hit. Her legs were shaking, but she remembered her father's lesson again. Don't fight fire with fire, fight it with stone. She stopped backing away. She stood her ground, waited, and when Zara came in again, overconfident, she moved not away, but forward. One step, one angle, one punch. It landed square on Zara's side. Zara blinked, surprised, not hurt, but surprised. The crowd gasped. No one had ever landed a clean shot on Zara before. The fight changed. Zara's face tightened. She wasn't smiling now. She came in harder, faster, angrier. The girl took hit after hit. Her lips split, her shoulder throbbed, her legs felt like jelly, but she stayed up, and she hit back again. And again, not harder, but smarter. Her punches weren't wild. They were aimed, measured. Just like her father taught her when they used pillows as gloves in their tiny one-room home. Just like the old tapes they used to watch together. But with broken noses and unbreakable spirits, minutes passed. No one moved. Even the coach stepped closer. Zara finally stepped back, breathing heavy, sweat running down her neck. You're not just lucky, she said quietly. The girl didn't answer. She was too tired, too focused. Zara lifted her gloves. Last round, she said. Show me who you are. And then it happened. They both moved at the same time. 2 punches collided, but only one landed. Zara fell, not hard, not flat, but enough to touch the ground. The yard fell completely silent. Even the birds stopped singing. The strongest had fallen. Not out of weakness, but because someone refused to break. Zara stood quickly, shook her head, looked at the girl, and then something no one expected happened. She held out her hand. The girl stared at it, unsure, then reached out. Their hands met, and just like that, everything changed. The crowd didn't cheer, they didn't clap, but they looked different. Something unspoken had shifted. Respect didn't need noise, it only needed proof. That night, someone left a bowl of soup on her bunk. No name, no message, just warmth. For the first time, she didn't eat alone. 3 girls from her squad sat. Beside her, they didn't talk much, but they stayed. The coach passed by and nodded once. A deep nod, a silent message. She was no longer invisible, but she knew it wasn't over. Strength alone wouldn't carry her all the way. The real test had just begun, and it came faster than expected. 2 days later, an officer from headquarters arrived at the camp. Clean uniform, sharp eyes. He walked straight to the coach's office. They spoke for an hour. When he came out, he walked straight to her. Everyone watched. He stopped in front of her and said, "You've been selected for the elite training exchange. Only 1 cadet from this region goes each year. You're it." The yard was dead silent. No one spoke. The coach stepped forward. She earned it. The officer handed her a file. "You leave in 2 days. Pack light, speak less, listen more." And then he walked away. As the sun set, the camp felt different. People stared, some with pride, some with envy, some still in disbelief. Zara came to her room that night. "You shook them," she said. "Not just with your fists, with your silence." "I wasn't silent," she replied. "I just saved my words for when they mattered." Zara smiled. "We'll meet again. Maybe next time I'll win." "Maybe," the girl said. They shook hands, not as rivals, as equals. When the transport truck arrived, she sat in the back, holding the file. Inside were rules, schedules, maps, and one small photo of the place she was going, a fortress on a cliff, known as the Iron Wall, where only the best trained, where the hardest minds were shaped. As the truck moved, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. She wasn't leaving something behind. She was carrying it. With her silence, the weight, the mud, the bruises, and the quiet nods of those who once doubted her, she looked ahead, toward the place where the strongest broke, where only the unshakable survived. She wasn't afraid, not anymore. The girl they tried to bury had learned how to root herself deep, and now she was ready to rise. The road to the Iron Wall was long, winding through rocky hills and sharp turns that made the transport truck shake with every bump. She sat at the back, gripping the edge of her seat, the file still clutched in her lap. No one spoke. 6 other cadets sat with her, boys and girls from other camps, each with a patch of their region sewn on their sleeve. No one looked at her, but from the corners of their eyes, she felt it. The same thing she'd felt since her first day. Doubt. Quiet, cold, creeping doubt. They had heard the story, no doubt, about the girl who dropped the strongest. But stories fade fast in places like this. Only action mattered now. Only what you proved. Again and again, the gates of the Iron Wall rose, like a shadow from the earth. It wasn't beautiful. It was terrifying. Black metal, gray stone, high towers, and a silence that felt heavy. The truck stopped. A sharp whistle blew. A woman in a black uniform walked to the back. "Out, stand straight, say nothing." They obeyed. She stood at the edge of the line, the smallest one again. The woman walked past each of them, her eyes like steel, her mouth unmoving. Then she stopped at her. "You," she said, "you're the wild card. Don't blink, or you'll break." No reaction, just a quiet nod. Inside, her stomach twisted, but she didn't show it. They were led through the main gates into a courtyard where over 100 cadets were already standing in formation. They turned as the newcomers entered. Some whispered, some smirked. All stared. The commandant stood on a raised platform. Tall, lean, gray hair, one eye. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "You were chosen because you're better than most. But here, better is not enough. Here, even the strong will cry." His voice was not loud, but it sank into their bones. "Each week, one of you will be cut. Not punished, not sent back. Just forgotten. If you last 12 weeks, you go to the final. If you don't, you never mattered." Then he stepped down. No smile, no welcome, just rules. Harsh. Final. Training began. That same evening, no rest, no room to adjust. First was the climb, a steep vertical wall with no ropes. Just fingers, toes, and faith. Many fell, scraped hands, bloody knees. She slipped twice. But she reached the top. Not first, but not last. That night, her arms were trembling, her nails torn, but she didn't cry. The beds were cold steel, no blankets, the showers ice water. Lights went off at 21 o'clock sharp. She lay there, eyes open in the dark. Around her whispers of frustration, of pain, of fear. One boy muttered, "This is hell." Someone else said, "She's not going to last." She knew they meant her. And maybe they were right, but she wasn't here to last. She was here to fight. The days blurred, weapons training, endurance, obstacle courses that made her bones scream, and something worse, the board. A brutal test of mental strength. They called each cadet into a silent room, where 3 instructors sat behind a black table. The rules were cruel. They'd read you your failures, every mistake, every weakness, and you weren't allowed to respond. Just stand there, still, silent, like a stone. Her name was called on the 3rd day. The walk to the board felt longer than any trail. When she entered, the room was freezing. One of them read from a sheet, "Unfit weight for combat, past injury on record, low initial scores, no family in service, no national merit, no mentor recommendation, regional exception granted due to unusual event classified as luck." He looked up. "What makes you think you belong here?" She said nothing, because that was the rule. But in her heart, the words burned. "I don't belong here. I belong ahead." Another instructor leaned in. "You were the weakest in your group when tested. You climbed slow. You struck slow. Why did they choose you?" Again silence. A third instructor tapped his pen. "Do you believe you are exceptional?" A pause. Then a whisper of a voice from her. "No. But I believe I can become it." For a second, the room froze. Then the head instructor marked something on the paper and said, "Dismissed." Back in the courtyard, they posted rankings every Friday. She wasn't first, or second, or third, but she moved up, from 26 to 19, then 14, then 10. It wasn't speed. It was steadiness. She never collapsed, never gave up. When others broke under pressure, she stayed standing, quiet, firm. On the 5th week, a challenge was announced. 1-on-1 in water. 2 cadets dropped into a muddy pool. The first to stay above water wins. It was harder than it sounded. The mud pulled you down. The cold locked your muscles. She was paired with a tall girl from the West Camp. Strong legs, fast hands. When the whistle blew, the water was chaos. Arms swinging, mud flying. At one point, the girl grabbed her throat, tried to push her under, but she twisted, elbowed back, and kicked. Not to win, but to breathe. They rolled, struggled, gasped, and then she rose first, covered in mud, barely able to stand. But up, she won. That night she was ranked number 5. Only the top 6 went to the final. The others began noticing her now, not just the cadets, but the commandant. One day he stopped her on the track. "Where does your power come from?" he asked. She thought for a moment, then said, "From what I've been through, and what I haven't forgotten." He nodded once, and walked away. Week 8. Final stretch. The hardest trial, the run. 20 kilometers through wild terrain. No food, no maps, and enemies planted to stop you. It wasn't just a run, it was war. The goal, reach the tower. Only 4 cadets made it. She was one of them. Her legs had stopped working after kilometer 15, but she had used her hands, crawled through the last hill. Her uniform was torn, her lip bleeding, but she touched the tower wall, and that was enough. At week 12, 6 cadets stood in front of the whole camp, the survivors, the finalists. Only one would be chosen for the commandant's guard, an elite group known across the country. The choice wasn't made by a match, not by a vote, but by one test. Carry the iron core. It was a tradition no one spoke about. A 60-kilogram iron block shaped like a heart. It had to be lifted and carried across the yard, all the way to the hill. Only one could do it, and only once. The others would watch. The commandant stepped forward. "You may all try, but only one will finish." The first cadet lifted it but dropped it before the halfway point. The second couldn't even get it off the ground. The third dragged it, fell, and passed out. Then it was her turn. She walked to it, placed her hands underneath, closed her eyes, and remembered everything. The whispers, the laughter, the bruises, the mud, the hill, the cold showers, the room full of silence, the night she slept with an empty belly, the moment Zara offered her hand, the look in her father's eyes the day she left. All of it. She opened her eyes and lifted. The iron burned her palms. Her spine screamed, but she moved, step by step, one breath at a time, across the yard, past the doubters, past the place where others had fallen, to the hill. She didn't stop. She didn't rest. She didn't scream. She reached the top. And laid the iron core down. For a second, the world paused, then silence broke. Not with a cheer, but with the sharp stomp of boots. One, then another, then all of them. Every cadet in the yard, including the 5 who failed, including the woman who doubted her. They stood, they saluted. She didn't smile. She didn't bow. She simply stood. There, the girl who was told she didn't belong, now holding the weight no one else could carry. But deep inside, something was still unfinished, because the real battle wasn't glory. It was going back to the place where it all began, to the people who still didn't believe, to the silence that still echoed inside her. The sky outside was dark, heavy with clouds, but inside the arena, the lights burned bright. It was the quarter-final match, one step closer to the championship, and somehow, against every odd, she had made it this far. A girl they laughed at. A girl they ignored. A girl no one ever expected to last even the first round. But here she was, Sonya, standing quietly behind the curtain, dressed in her simple gear, eyes focused, hands clenched. Outside, the crowd roared. Her opponent tonight was Karan, a man known for his brute power. The crowd favorite, a giant. People called him the Wall. He hadn't lost a single fight all season, and he didn't just win, he crushed. Sonya heard one of the commentators say, "Let's be honest, folks, this may not even last 5 minutes. We admire the girl's spirit, but Karan is another level." She smiled to herself. She was used to this by now, and it didn't matter. She wasn't here for them, she was here for herself, for her brother Ahil, for every lonely day in the orphanage, for every night she cried, holding her medal from school athletics, the only proof that she could be more. The bell rang. Her name was announced. Sonya walked out. The lights were blinding, the cameras zoomed in on her. She saw her coach in the front row, nodding once, slowly. A silent message. "You've already done more than anyone expected." She stepped into the ring. Karan stood on the other side, smirking. He didn't say anything. He just stretched his shoulders and cracked his neck. His confidence wasn't arrogant, it was just real. Why would he be nervous? They touched gloves. The referee stepped back. The crowd quieted for a second, then the bell rang. Karan moved fast. Sonya barely had time to duck the first swing. She wasn't new to this, but his speed with that size, it was terrifying. She kept circling, dodging, testing his rhythm. 3 minutes in, and Karan had already cornered her twice. The third time, he landed a hard blow to her ribs. She fell. The crowd gasped, but not in shock. In confirmation, "See, this is what we told you." Sonya lay there for a second. Wind knocked out, pain sharp in her side, and then she heard it. A voice in her memory, her brother's voice. "They don't get to tell you where you belong. You show them." She got up. The referee looked surprised. Karan raised an eyebrow. She wasn't done. Round 2, the pace was slower. Karan had started to respect her now, just a little. Enough to guard properly. But Sonya wasn't just fast, she was patient. She let him tire, she let him throw. And then, in a flash, she ducked, spun, and landed a clean hit under his jaw. The crowd stood up. Karan stumbled back. They weren't cheering just yet, but they weren't laughing anymore. The round ended. Sonya walked to her corner. Her coach gave her water. Didn't say much. Just whispered, "You saw it, right? He can bleed." She nodded. Round 3 started. This was it. Final round before the decision. Karan came back harder this time. Furious. Embarrassed. His punches were wild now. Not careless, but angry. Sonya blocked what she could. Took a few hits, but stayed on her feet. Then it happened. Karan stepped in for a knockout blow, but his back foot slipped just half an inch. That was all Sonya needed. She ducked, rose up, and hit him with a clean uppercut. Karan fell. Silence for a second. The entire arena froze. Then screams erupted. Not of joy, not yet, but of shock. The referee started the count. Karan groaned. He got up on 7, bleeding from the nose. Still strong, but shaken. The round finished without another fall. Then came the announcement. The judges whispered. The crowd waited, the tension thick like fog. Then the speaker said it. Winner by decision, Sonya Malik. People didn't cheer at first. They just stared. Even Karan looked confused for a second, and then applauded, slow at first. Then loud, then thunderous. People rose to their feet. Sonya looked around, heart pounding. She didn't smile, not yet. Karan walked over. He extended his hand. "That was something else," he said, still catching his breath. She shook it. Then walked off. In the hallway backstage. She sat on a bench, alone, letting her breathing slow. A sound behind her. It was the CEO of the tournament. The man who had called her a sweet distraction on day 1. The same man who joked, "Let her fight the Wall. Let's see if she lasts 1 round." He looked stunned. "I underestimated you," he said. Sanya didn't reply. He handed her a card. "There's a press conference in 20 minutes. Sponsors are asking about you now. One of them wants you for their campaign." She looked at the card, then at him. "I'm not here to be a face," she said quietly. "I'm here to fight." He didn't know what to say. She stood up, walked past him, and behind her. For the first time in the entire tournament, he turned to watch her go. But as she turned the corner, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You did well today, but if you really want to prove you belong, face me in the semis. They call me the strongest. Let's see if that name still stands after you." She stared at the message, heart pounding again. She replied, "I'll be there." Cut to black. The morning air was cold and sharp. Fog curled around the stadium like breath from a sleeping giant. Inside, the arena was quiet. Too early for the crowd, too late to turn back. Sonya stood alone in the practice ring. The message from last night replayed in her mind like a heartbeat. "Face me in the semis. They call me the strongest." She didn't know who he was. No name, no history, just a message and a promise. Her coach entered quietly. "They just posted the draw," he said. "Your next fight is tomorrow night." He's called R of the Hammer, undefeated for 2 years. No opponent has lasted past round 2. Sonya didn't flinch. Her coach added softly. "He used to be a soldier. Fights like every punch is a command. Brutal, precise. She picked up her gloves and started wrapping her hands. Her coach watched her. You can still walk away. Sonya looked up. Then why did you wake me up at 5 in the morning? He smiled. They trained harder than ever that day. Sonya sparred till her legs trembled. Every punch she threw, she imagined Arav in front of her. Every time she hit the mat, she imagined rising with something bigger than strength-belief. Night fell. Sonya sat alone in her room, staring at a photo of her younger brother Ahil, the one taken just weeks before he died. His smile was full of life, his eyes full of trust. And now that trust lived in her fists. The day of the semifinals came, the stadium was packed. Not just fans this time, scouts, media, even international teams. Rumors had spread about the girl who beat the wall. Arav arrived with silence, no showmanship, no music, just calm eyes and a jaw like granite. When he entered the ring, the air changed. It felt colder, sharper. Sanya walked out to no fanfare. But this time, the audience didn't ignore her. They stood, they clapped. Some chanted her name. She saw Karan in the front row, the man she'd beaten. He nodded once at her. The bell rang, and the storm began. Arav didn't test the waters. He attacked. His punches were terrifying, sharp-timed, brutal. Sonya ducked the first, blocked the second, but the third hit her shoulder like a hammer. She stumbled but stayed up. He was different, not just strong, intelligent. He didn't waste movements. He studied her with each second. And yet, she didn't back down. She moved faster, hit back, slipped past his guard once, landed a jab, then another, but he didn't flinch. Round 1 ended. Sonya sat in her corner, chest heaving. Her coach looked worried. You're scoring points, but they won't win you the fight. You need to shake him. Round 2. Arav came with less force, more focus. He was testing her patience now, trying to make her nervous. Sonya didn't take the bait. She matched his rhythm, waited for her opening. It came halfway through. A slight drop in his right hand. She pounced a hook to his jaw. He blinked, then smiled and hit back. The punch landed. Across her cheek. Everything spun. The crowd gasped as she staggered. She grabbed the ropes, steadied herself. Her vision blurred, her mouth filled with blood, but she didn't fall. She stood again, and something shifted. The audience rose. Somewhere in the back, someone shouted, "You've got this, Sonya." The bell rang. She sat back in the corner. Her coach pressed ice to her face. "He's too calm," he whispered. "You need to break his rhythm, or he'll break you." She nodded. Final round. The arena buzzed. Even Arav looked different now, focused, not underestimating her anymore. They circled each other. Then, suddenly, she did something unexpected. She dropped her guard just for a second. Arav blinked, unsure. She whispered, just loud enough, "Come on, let's finish this." He attacked, and she dodged. Not once, but twice. Then she countered. A left to the ribs, a right to the jaw, a quick spin, and a hard elbow to the side of his face. Arav stumbled back. The crowd roared. Sonya didn't stop. She threw everything now. Not wild, not desperate, controlled, focused, beautiful. Arav blocked what he could, but she was moving too fast. He hit the mat. The stadium exploded. The referee began the count. 1, 2, 3. Arav opened his eyes. 4, 5, 6. He got up. Sonya stepped back, breathing hard. The final seconds ticked. The bell rang. Both fighters stood, both exhausted, both bleeding. The referee raised both hands, then turned and lifted Sonya's. The crowd was thunder. Arav nodded at her, wiped his face, and walked away. No protest, no anger, just respect. Sonya looked around. For the first time, she truly saw them. Thousands standing, not clapping because they were surprised, but because they believed now. She walked off stage, past cameras, past sponsors, past press, straight into the locker room. Her coach followed. He didn't speak. She sat on the bench. Tears welled in her, eyes silent, deep. "I did it," she whispered. "Yes," her coach said. "But it's not over yet." She looked up. He handed her a sealed envelope. "It arrived this morning. No name. Just for you." She opened it. Inside was a simple message. "They finally see you, but the final won't be fair. Watch your back." No signature, just those words. She stared at it. Was it a warning? A threat? A trap? Cut to black. The stadium was quiet the next morning. Sonya sat alone on the edge of the ring, staring at the letter again. "The final won't be fair. Watch your back." She read it 5 times, trying to make sense of it. Was it from Arav? From a friend? From someone in the system who saw what was coming? Her coach walked in, holding 2 cups of tea. He handed her one. "I saw your face last night." "What did the letter say?" She hesitated, then passed it to him. He read it. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes darkened. "We knew this wouldn't be clean," he finally said. "You're not just fighting opponents now. You're fighting the machine." Sonya looked at him. "You think they'll cheat?" He took a long sip of tea. "They might not need to. All they have to do is look the other way when someone else does." She clenched her fists, then let them. That day, her training was quiet but intense. She didn't speak much. Neither did her coach. They both knew the final would be more than just a match. It would be a war. News had already spread. Underdog girl knocks out undefeated champion. The media buzzed around her now. Interviews, offers, praise. But Sonya ignored all of it. She hadn't come here for fame. She came to finish something. The final opponent's name was Aryan Malik. Tall, sharp, dangerous. He had a reputation not just for winning but for finishing fights early. One opponent left with a broken rib, another with a concussion. His style was brutal and fast. He was also the favorite of the national selectors and a rumored protege of one of the tournament organizers. That night, while walking back to her room, Sonya noticed a man in a black jacket waiting in the shadows. She paused. He stepped forward. "Don't trust the ref tomorrow," he whispered. Then he vanished down the corridor. Sonya stood frozen. The hallway felt darker suddenly, every shadow heavier. When she got back to her room, she locked the door and sat on the floor. Why was everyone warning her, and why now? The next morning she got her answer. Her coach stormed into her room with a newspaper. "Sonya, look." She took it. On the front page was a blurry photo of her in the locker room, arms bruised, face swollen from after her semifinal. The headline read, "Too hurt to continue. Sources say finalist may be unfit." Below it, another line, "Medical board to decide before final match." She dropped the paper. "They're trying to get you disqualified," her coach growled. "They want to claim you're unfit so Aryan wins without fighting." Sonya stood up. "Then let them run their tests." He looked at her. "They'll rig it." She didn't blink. "Then I'll still pass." Later that day, a panel of doctors arrived. They made her run, stretch, breathe, balance. They checked her eyes, her ribs, her reflexes. The whole time, 2 tournament officials watched from the corner at the end. The lead doctor smiled slightly and said, "She's bruised, but cleared." The officials exchanged tight glances. That evening, Aryan made his first statement to the press. "She's emotional. She's reckless, and she doesn't know what real pressure feels like. Tomorrow, I'll remind everyone why experience matters." Sonya didn't respond, but something inside her clicked. Not anger, focus. The day of the final arrived. The stadium was electric. Cameras, lights, drums, celebrities in the front row. Every seat filled. And somewhere up in the higher stands, her mother sat quietly. She had come without telling anyone. Sonya didn't see her, but her mother's eyes never left the ring in the dressing room. Her coach helped her wrap her hands. He paused. "Whatever happens out there, win or lose, you already changed everything." Sonya looked at him. "I didn't come this far to lose." The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice boomed. In the red corner, national champion, undefeated, Aryan the Blade Malik. The crowd roared. Aryan entered with full music, fireworks, and camera flashes. He raised both arms and soaked it in. And in the blue corner, the girl who shocked the nation, Sonya Dev. This time, the crowd didn't hesitate. They stood. They screamed her name. She walked out. No music, just steady steps. Eyes locked ahead. The bell rang. Round 1 began. Aryan struck. Fast like lightning. Sonya barely blocked the first 2 hits. His footwork was sharp, his punches loud. He was everything they said he was. But Sonya didn't fold. She took the blows, measured him, and struck back harder than before. She landed a clean uppercut. Aryan's head snapped. He glared at her. "You'll regret that." She just smiled. The round ended. In the second round, something odd happened. Aryan's glove ripped slightly. He walked to the ref. The ref called time. Sonya stepped back, confused. A replacement glove was brought in, one already opened and waiting. Too fast. Her coach shouted from the sidelines, "Check that glove." But the ref ignored him. Aryan slipped it on, smirked. Sonya felt it too. Late his punches now landed harder than before. Waited. Illegal. She wasn't sure. She just knew her ribs ached worse now. Her shoulder stung, and her breath shortened. In round 3, Aryan went for the finish. He rushed her, swung wildly. The ref didn't stop the low blows, didn't pause the clinches, didn't even count one of her clear knockdowns. The crowd started murmuring. Even they could see it now. The ref wasn't neutral. Sonya fell once, got up, fell again, got up slower. Her coach screamed, "Back off. Let him miss." She danced, now Dajin weaving, surviving. Final minute. Aryan went for one last punch. She ducked. He spun off balance. She twisted and landed the cleanest hook of her life, right on his chin. His legs buckled. He hit the mat face first. The crowd stood in silence. The ref looked unsure. He started counting. 1, 2, 3. Aryan moved. 4, 5, 6. He tried to stand. 7, 8. He slipped. 9. He got to his knees. 10. Too late. The bell rang. Knockout. Sanya had won. But the ref looked confused. He spoke to the officials. They delayed the announcement. Crowd booed. 5 minutes passed. Then finally, winner by knockout, Sonya Dev. The stadium shook. Cameras flashed. Reporters stormed. But Sonya didn't cheer. She walked straight to her coach, hugged him, and whispered, "They tried everything." He smiled, and still couldn't stop you. That night, she sat alone on the rooftop of the stadium, still in her gear. Her mother appeared quietly behind her. "I saw you fall," she said. Sanya turned and rise. Her mother nodded. "That, too." They sat in silence. Below them, the city pulsed with light and noise. Her mother finally said, "You've done more than win. You've opened a door." Sonia looked up at the stars, but she knew the sky wasn't the limit anymore. Then her phone buzzed. One new message. They lost, but they're not done. The real battle starts now. She stared at it, eyes narrowed. The story wasn't over. Not yet. Cut to black. The sun was high, but it couldn't burn away the chill in Myra's bones. The courtyard was alive with activity students training, instructors shouting commands, but all she heard was her own breath, slow and focused. She had trained with Vic for weeks, learning not just how to fight, but how to understand strength, real strength, the kind that came from within. But today wasn't about training. It was the first day of the selection duels. Everyone was required to participate. Each fighter would be paired randomly, and the winner would move forward. The top 4 would be allowed to train with the elite circle, where the strongest of the academy trained under General Kale himself. Myra didn't care about that. She had only one goal, to prove she belonged, to stop the whispers, to silence the laughter. She walked into the center of the arena where all fighters gathered. Names were being drawn. Some smirked when they saw her. Others just ignored her. She spotted Leia standing confidently beside her group, already laughing as if the prize was hers. The head instructor pulled the next name. First match, Leia, of House Thorn, and Mira, the foundling. The crowd gasped, then laughed. Even Mira's heart sank. She had wished not to fight Leia this early, but maybe this was her chance. Leia stepped forward with that same smirk. "You sure you want to do this in front of everyone? You could pretend to faint now and save yourself the embarrassment." Mira said nothing. She walked to the center of the ring, her fists tight, her back straight. The bell rang. Leia attacked. First, fast, brutal, a spinning kick aimed right at Mira's ribs. Mira dodged, just barely. Another strike, another dodge. The crowd was already losing interest. "She's just running," someone said, like always. But Vic's voice cut through. "Hold your ground, Mira. Make her chase." Mira did just that. She ducked, rolled, stepped aside. Leia grew more impatient, more reckless. Finally, Mira saw an opening, a soft spot under Leia's arm after a high kick. She struck. The impact made Leia stumble back. The crowd went silent for half a second, then another hit, and another. Mira wasn't just defending now, she was fighting. Leia screamed in rage and launched herself forward. They both fell to the ground. Dust flew everywhere. A blur of movement. Then the bell rang. Silence. Both girls stood, panting, bruised, bloody. The instructor walked forward, looked at them both. "Winner, Mira?" The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know how to react, but Vic was clapping hard. Then others slowly joined in. Leia stormed off, her pride more broken than her body. Myra stood there, trembling, unsure if she should smile or cry. She didn't win just a duel, she cracked something bigger, but this was only round 1. Later that night, Myra sat outside under a tree. Vic handed her water. "You did good," he said, "but tomorrow will be harder. People will come for you now." "I know," she whispered. "You're not fighting just opponents. You're fighting a system that never wanted you here." She nodded. "Then I'll keep fighting." The next day brought another match. Mira versus El Rectal, fast, and twice as loud, but Mira had learned. She didn't need strength like as she had control. Focus. She won again. Barely. By the 3rd day, she was a name people whispered, but not with mockery. Now, it was with curiosity. How was she doing it? Could she really win again? And she did. 3 wins. 1 more to go. That night, she dreamed of her mother's voice, though she'd never heard it. In the dream, her mother said, "They can't break you unless you let them inside." She woke up with a fire she hadn't felt before. The final duel would determine everything. One more step, one more chance. But the name drawn against her chilled the crowd. Mira Vestarian. Darian, the strongest student in the academy. General Kale's personal student. He had never lost, ever. Even Vic's face changed. He didn't speak for a long time. "Are you afraid?" he finally asked. "Yes," she said, "but I'm still going." When Mira stepped into the arena, Darian was already there, calm and powerful like a storm held back only by choice. He didn't smirk. He didn't mock her. "I've watched you," he said quietly. "You're better than they say." "Then don't hold back," she replied. The bell rang. Darian attacked with precision. Mira blocked, ducked, countered. It was unlike anything she'd ever faced. His movements were clean, deadly, and patient. But Myra didn't fall. She danced around him like wind around stone. She didn't try to overpower. She waited. Until she found it. His knee twisted slightly from an old injury. She struck. He stumbled. The crowd stood. Mira rushed in, but he grabbed her wrist midair, swung her over, and she hit the ground hard. Her breath left her. Pain shot through her ribs, but she remembered Vic's voice. "Get up." She did, shaking, but she stood. Darian looked surprised. "I didn't expect you to rise again," he said. Myra smiled, bloody lip and all. "That's the problem. None of you ever do." She charged, not recklessly, but with everything she had left. He blocked. She spun. She used her smaller size to slip under his guard and land one solid strike to his side. The bell rang. Silence. Both were still standing. The instructors huddled. After long moments, the head instructor walked forward. A draw. The crowd exploded. Cheers. Shouts. Confusion. Darian stepped closer to Mira. He nodded, then raised her hand with his. She belongs, he said, voice loud. No one laughed. Not even Leah. Mira felt her chest break open, not with pain but with something new. For the first time, she wasn't alone. But later that night, as she washed her bruises, she found a note slipped under her door. It had only 6 words. You weren't supposed to win today. And Mira realized this battle was far from over. The sun had not even touched the edge of the hills when Mena stood alone outside the old gym. Her hands trembled not from fear this time, but something deeper. She had just come back from her mother's grave. The night before, she had whispered, "I'll make you proud." Now, that promise wrapped itself tightly around her heart. Inside the gym, the committee had gathered again. Not because they wanted her, no. This time it was because something had changed. After yesterday's challenge, when Mina had lifted that sandbag no one believed she could, whispers had begun. And those whispers turned into questions. How's she doing this? Where did she come from? Who trained her? Today was not a competition day, yet the room buzzed. Even Arav was there, standing with his usual arrogance. But something about his face had changed. He didn't mock her, not openly, but his eyes studied her like a puzzle he couldn't solve. As Mena entered, silence fell. The committee head, Mr. Sinha, stepped forward. You've passed all preliminary rounds, but before we consider you for national trials, we have one condition. Her heart raced. She nodded. You will compete against Arav publicly, tomorrow. Murmurs filled the room. Arav frowned. Why me? Because you're the best, Mr. Sinha said, looking directly at him. And if she wants a place among the best, she must beat one. The room TENSED.MEENA didn't speak, she just nodded again. Because deep down, she knew this was always coming. That night, the village came alive with talk. Some laughed, others whispered in awe. A few elders said it was madness, but even they didn't turn away from the idea of watching it happen. The next morning was unlike anything the village had seen. The training field had been turned into a stage. Ropes and wooden poles surrounded it. People from nearby towns gathered. Phones came out. News reporters arrived. It wasn't just a local contest anymore. The announcer's voice boomed through a small speaker. Today, we witnessed something we've never seen. The strongest man in our region against the girl no one believed in. Mina stood on one side of the ring. Her hands were wrapped, her face calm, but her eyes burned like fire. Arav stood opposite her, chest bare, fists clenched, his pride flickering like a flame about to lose control. The competition wasn't a fight, it was a series of strength-based challenges. Lifting balance, speed, endurance. First was the tire flip. A massive industrial tire stood between them. Arav moved first. In seconds, he flipped it 20 times, his muscles bulging, veins pumping. People cheered. Then Mena stepped up. She struggled on the first flip, her body shaking, but then she steadied herself. 1 flip, 2, then faster. With each flip, her past rose with her every insult, every lonely dinner, every door shut in her face. 1921. She beat him by 1. The crowd roared. Araf's jaw clenched. Second was the rope climb. Straight up, 25 feet. Araf moved like a machine, smooth and swift. Mena followed. Her arms screamed. The sun burned, but she didn't stop. Halfway up, her hand slipped. Gasps spread, but she caught herself. Eyes closed. She pulled with every last thread of her being. She reached the top, 1 second behind AARAV.1. Win each. Third was the endurance carry. Both had to carry weighted logs across a set distance. Arav, broad and experienced, surged forward. Mina, lighter and smaller, staggered but didn't fall. Halfway, Arav dropped his log and picked it up again, losing seconds. Mina didn't stop. She reached the finish line just before him. 2-1. The crowd stood on their feet. Fourth was the balance beam, a narrow wooden plank, high above a water pit. Both had to cross while holding weights. Arav slipped once, but made it. Mina crossed, slowly, her feet steady like a dancer. She made it without a stumble. 3-1. Final round, the push test. Both stood facing each other on a platform. Whoever pushed the other off won the final point. Arav looked at her, breathing heavily. This is mine, he whispered. Mina didn't respond. They circled, hands locked. Arav pushed hard, his muscles flexing, his face red. Mena bent her knees, shifted her weight, and absorbed the force. She remembered what her grandfather taught her. Strength is not just in pushing, but in knowing when to yield. She stepped sideways. Arav lost balance. For a moment, time stopped, and then he fell. The platform shook. The crowd gasped. He lay there, stunned, staring up at the sky. Mina stood tall, breathing, crying, smiling. The silence broke with applause, then cheers. People rushed forward. Some hugged her, others cried. A little girl ran up and said, "You're my hero." But just as Mana turned to thank the crowd, a slow clap echoed behind her. She turned to see Arav, back on his feet, clapping. He walked toward her, stopped, and raised her hand high into the air. "She belongs," he shouted. The crowd echoed, "She belongs. She belongs." The committee stepped forward. Mr. Sinha had tears in his eyes. "Welcome to the national team, Mena." But just when everything seemed perfect, someone pushed through the crowd. It was a reporter with a camera and a mic. "Miss Mena," he said, panting, "we've uncovered something strange. There is a man in the city claiming you stole his identity to join this competition. He says you forged documents, that you don't even live here." Gasps again. Faces turned. Murmurs grew dark. Mena froze. The reporter held up a paper. "He says you used his niece's certificate, that your real name isn't Mena." Arif's face hardened. The crowd that had lifted her seconds ago now stepped back. Even Mr. Sin looked uncertain. Mena stood alone again, and then she said softly, "You want to know who I really am?" But before she could speak, police sirens echoed in the distance. The sirens grew louder as the police van rolled into the field, scattering the crowd like fallen leaves in a storm. Mena stood still at the center of it, all her shoulders straight, her face unreadable. The cheering had stopped. Phones were back in hands, but now not for celebration. They were recording a scandal. Two officers stepped out. One walked toward the reporter who had made the claim. The other walked toward Mena. "You are Mena Kumari?" the officer asked. She nodded. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Yes. We've received a report that the identity under which you registered does not match your background details. We need to ask you a few questions at the station." The crowd didn't speak. Arif's fists clenched. Mr. Sinha opened his mouth to intervene, but stopped. "I'll come," Mena said simply. As she stepped off the platform, Arif called out, "Wait." Everyone turned. "She didn't cheat," he said, walking forward. "She beat me fair and square. You all saw it." But officer raised a hand. "We're not arresting her. We're investigating a claim." But Mena didn't resist. She knew this was coming. Not this exact thing, but something. Life had never let her rise without shaking her first. She climbed into the van quietly. The ride to the station was short. Reporters followed. Outside, camera flashes lit up the entrance. Inside, the air smelled of paper and metal and silence. She was led to a small room. A woman officer sat with her. "Tell us everything." So she did. She told them about her village, about how it disappeared during the floods 5 years ago, about how government records failed to update because her entire town's files were destroyed, about how she was moved to a shelter with no ID, no school, no future. She told them she found a family friend in the city who helped her start again, used an old certificate belonging to a distant cousin who had passed. "It was the only way I could enter school again," she said, "not to cheat, just to survive." The officer didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "Do you have anyone who can confirm this?" Mena pulled a folded photo from her pocket. It was a worn-out picture of herself, her mother, and a woman with a kind face. "Her name is Bina Auntie. She's the one who helped me." The officer nodded and made a call. Outside, the news spread like wildfire. Rising Star's ID under question. Mina, a fraud or a fighter. But even louder than the hate was a new voice rising. Support, online. People who had followed her story began speaking out. She didn't fake her strength. Even if her papers were broken, she never cheated. Let her speak. Hashtags flooded in. Hashtag justice for MEENA. Hashtag she belongs. Back at the gym, RF stood in front of reporters. "I've fought hundreds," he said, "but what she did, no one handed her a shortcut. If there's any justice, she should be on that team." By evening, the officer returned. "We spoke to Bina. Everything checks out. What you did wasn't legal, but it wasn't criminal either. You were a child, and you didn't cheat in the competition." Mena felt her breath return. "But," the officer added, "the final decision is up to the committee." She was released. The walk back to the village wasn't quiet. People stood waiting on rooftops. Children ran beside her. A little girl handed her a flower. Mina didn't know whether to cry or smile. At the gym, the committee sat in silence. Then Mr. Sinha stood. "We were wrong," he said. "Not to question your past, but to think your worth depended only on papers." He turned to the crowd. "Do you still want her to represent us?" A roar of yes rose like thunder. He turned back to Mena. "Congratulations. You're officially on the national team." But just as cheers began, Mena raised her hand. "There's one thing I want to say." The room went quiet. "I never wanted fame. I didn't come here to prove I was better than anyone. I just wanted to belong, to stand somewhere and not be asked to leave. I wanted to show that even someone like me, lost, broken, forgotten, can rise. And if I can, so can any girl who's been told you're not enough." A woman in the crowd began to cry. So did another. Mina smiled softly. "This win isn't mine alone. It's for every girl who is told she doesn't look strong enough, or speak smart enough, or come from a good enough place. This is for them." Applause followed, but this time, it wasn't wild. It was deep, honest, grateful. Later that week, she left for the capital. She was given a shared room at the national camp. She trained harder than ever. There were no shortcuts. Now, no mercy, no pauses. Months passed. Then came the final moment. The national championship. live on television. Crowds shouting, flags waving. Mena stepped into the arena. Her opponent was taller, richer, and trained in elite academies. But when the final round came, Mina stood taller. Her opponent fell. Cameras flashed. And in that instant, it wasn't just a win, it was history. Weeks later, when she returned to her village for a break, she found something waiting. A bronze statue, not of a politician, not of a king, but of a girl lifting a sandbag, her name carved into stone. She belonged long before anyone saw it. Mena touched the base of the statue. She closed her eyes. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Don't fight to be seen, fight to be true. She had done both that and now. No one could ever make her invisible again.